Eleanor Cole stepped off the bus and onto the cobblestone path leading to the diplomat's opulent mansion. She clutched her worn leather satchel tightly, her simple dress and sensible shoes a stark contrast to the grandeur surrounding her. The lush gardens were meticulously maintained, and the grand entranceway loomed with an air of formality that always unsettled Eleanor. She had been nannying for the diplomat's daughter, Lily, for several months now, yet the world of wealth and politics inside the mansion never failed to remind her of how out of place she felt. Inside, the mansion buzzed with anticipation. High-ranking guests mingled in the spacious living rooms, their laughter tinkling like glasses of champagne. Eleanor made her way through the elegantly dressed crowd, offering friendly greetings to the household staff she often worked alongside. As the children played in the drawing room under her watchful eye, a sudden commotion from the hallway pierced the air. A steward hurried in, whispering urgently into the ear of the diplomat's stern assistant. Eleanor caught the words "necklace" and "missing" amidst the urgent discussion. Moments later, the assistant stormed into the room, eyes landing sharply on Eleanor. "You were the last with Lily before the reception," the assistant accused loud enough for the guests nearby to hear. "You had the opportunity." Eleanor's heart pounded in her chest. Shocked whispers spread like wildfire, while Eleanor's protests were drowned out by disbelief. More voices joined in, casting aspersions and ridicule. Accusations of theft and ill intentions piled upon her, culminating in security ushering her from the mansion. Humiliated and defeated, Eleanor kept her gaze on the ground as she left, her mind reeling but resolute in her innocence. Back in her cramped apartment, Eleanor sat in stunned silence. The weight of the accusations and the evening's humiliations bore down on her like an unshakable burden. Her fingers traced invisible circles on the fraying armrest of her thrift store couch as she stared blankly at nothing in particular. Her thoughts were a chaotic mess, alternating between the disbelief of what had transpired and the fear of her future prospects. That night, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, assertions of her guilt and accusations of kidnapping haunted her. The memory of the diplomat's stern assistant pointing a finger at her replayed in an endless loop in her mind. She tossed and turned, reaching instinctively for her phone to check messages, hoping, maybe even praying, for a note from someone who believed in her innocence. But there was none. As dawn broke, she forced herself from shouldering these thoughts long enough to face the day. Despite her worry about losing her job, her only stable source of income, the greater specter of a tarnished reputation loomed larger. She yearned for the peace of mind she had before last night's debacle, but it seemed out of reach now. Her stomach grumbled, a reminder of the meal she hadn't touched since the previous morning. Eleanor managed to toast a piece of bread, though her attempts to eat it were lackluster at best. The lifeline calls from her concerned sister went unanswered. She couldn't face explaining the situation, not yet when the silence was her only company to brood. Images from her past flickered like a slideshow through her mind. She recalled being a dedicated nurse, adept and caring, before familial responsibilities demanded her full attention. Her father's untimely passing left their family in turmoil, and Eleanor didn't think twice before foregoing her career to tend to her ailing mother and younger siblings. There was a certain nobility in her actions, but it was also the cause of many sleepless nights of late as she strove for stability once more, thinking how far she had fallen from her original path. After years of hardship, she'd resumed work, retraining as a nanny and finding solace in the care of children. Her connection with Lily, the diplomat's daughter, had been special, an unspoken bond formed from genuine care and affection. Eleanor found herself reflecting on Lily's reactions during playtime. She remembered how the girl often seemed tense, her laughter cutting short, her gaze darting nervously whenever her father walked past. Something in Lily's mannerisms had tugged at Eleanor's instincts, though respect for her employers had kept her from voicing any concerns. Eleanor wandered through her tiny apartment, picking up and putting down objects absent-mindedly, caught deeply in her recollections. Her resilience had carried her through when her mother eventually passed away, enabling her siblings to secure better futures. Yet here she stood, risking everything once more, now through no fault of her own. The days following the accusation were a haze of anxiety and paralyzing uncertainty. Eleanor rarely spoke. Her interactions with neighbors were curt and often punctuated by nervous glances, as if she half expected secrets to leap from her tongue. Her phone buzzed intermittently, mostly concerned acquaintances, and, for the most part, Eleanor let the calls ring out. On a particularly quiet afternoon, Eleanor sat by her window, tracing patterns in the condensation on the glass, recalling with clarity one particular incident with Lily. It was a memorable afternoon where the girl, seemingly desperate to get her words out, insisted Eleanor read a specific comforting book irrespective of her schedule. The poignancy in Lily's voice, fragile yet urgent, had pricked Eleanor's attention then. A shiver coursed through Eleanor as she remembered how Lily seemed to cling more tightly, her eyes reflecting shadows of unspoken fears beyond words. Eleanor's resolve crystallized from the amalgam of memories and emotions swirling inside her, a determination to fight, not just for herself, but for Lily, who might have been without a voice amidst powerful adults. Eleanor resolved to clear her name, whatever it took. Her dedication to the truth would not be swamped by the pretensions of those with influence and stature. She may have been humiliated publicly, but her spirit was unbroken, and a resolve formed that she would shed light on the truth and guard the little girl who had yet to speak for herself. With this new surge of purpose, Eleanor planned the next steps meticulously. She would need to find someone willing to reconsider the situation, someone who would listen, perhaps even help. But first, she needed proof, something tangible to combat the damning assumptions. Each recollection of her time at the mansion painted fancy tapestries of potential truths yet real, but the seeds were one in heart and intent. The prospect of justice restored lies awaited manifestation. In these thoughts of retrospection and rekindled ambition, Eleanor gathered her resolve. She was not merely fighting for survival but the essence of truth against a wave of claims and silent disapproval. Though the path toward exoneration seemed dauntingly steep, Eleanor knew she must take the first steps, reaffirming trust in her instincts and seeing her innocence upheld. It wouldn't be easy, it might take meticulous steps and reflections, but she would forge on, if only to prove that losing everything was impossible when one is resolute. Several days passed before a flicker of memory disrupted Eleanor's sleepless routine, a memory she'd unconsciously buried amidst the tumult of her emotions. Dawn light filtered into her apartment, stirring silhouettes across the walls when the moment resurfaced. The image was of a gentleman whose presence seemed oddly incongruent with the other guests. He had an air of authority that was too polished, almost rehearsed, unlike the natural ease of the other diplomats. Eleanor remembered him appearing out of nowhere, regarding Lily with an indecently intense gaze as the child had been playing. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, reminding Lily to mind her manners when the guest had approached. Still, his interest in the little girl hadn't been lost on Eleanor. There had been an uneasiness, a certain predacious air in his demeanor, menacingly slinking, despite the supposed sophistication. Jolted by the recollection, Eleanor knew she couldn't remain idle any longer. She called the mansion's management office that very afternoon, steeling herself to make her case with polite urgency. Despite her attempts for a calm discourse, her words met frosty resistance from the manager tasked with handling the incident, the same assistant who had alleged her guilt. The official's voice, though impeccably courteous, bore underlying irritation, dismissing Eleanor's account before she could gain any substantial ground. "The matter is closed, Miss Cole," he concluded tightly, a curt end to their exchange. Frustrated by the cold reception but undeterred, Eleanor shifted tactics. Determination propelling her forward, she decided to return to the scene herself, albeit cautiously. On a crisp morning, she dressed inconspicuously and made her way to the mansion, hoping luck would favor her with anonymity amidst the staff busy preparing for another event. Eleanor donned the guise of a temporary worker, slipping into the mansion's service entrance amongst caterers and florists bustling in with their deliveries. The air was thick with chatter and activity, expertly camouflaging her unsanctioned presence. She moved with a sense of purpose through the back corridors, sticking to shadowed corners that were delightfully out of sight. Her heart thrummed loudly in her chest with each step, yet her mind remained ironclad with focus. She eventually found David, a security guard she'd befriended during earlier provisions of her duties. Their exchanges had always been friendly, even sharing in laughter about trivial daily observations. The favorable outcome of their amiability lay in David's reaction upon seeing Eleanor, his eyes a mix of surprise and concern. He signaled subtly for her to follow him into a break room, away from prying eyes and ears. "What are you doing here, Eleanor?" David began. His gaze flickered to the corridor behind her, checking they hadn't been watched. "I need your help, David," she replied, direct and sincere. "I've been wrongly accused, you must know that. I remember someone, that doesn't add up." David hesitated only briefly before nodding slowly, sympathy etching his features. "I'll see what I can do." It seemed he couldn't wholly ignore her plea for assistance and was familiar, perhaps too closely, with the estate's enigmatic machinations. Eleanor waited anxiously as David accessed the sophisticated security system, clicking through footage reels with practiced efficiency. Each clip that filtered through the muted screen bore traces of routine estate life. Eleanor's heart sank ever so slightly, afraid maybe there was nothing. Just as Eleanor considered abandoning the endeavor, David's voice drew her scrutiny. "Got it." They watched with held breath as the video revealed the diplomat roughly clasping Lily's upper arm, the little girl's expression one of unmistakable distress. The interaction unfolded in an isolated corridor, absent of any potential for public eyes, lending credibility to Eleanor's suspicions of private intimidation. As the footage played, both their attentions caught a brief glimpse of Eleanor and the stranger talking, as Lily, interpreting solace from Eleanor's reassuring smile, fled the scene towards them, enveloping spontaneous hide and seek till Eleanor curtailed the game, restoring the home stretch. The confirmation washed over Eleanor like a cold wave, buoying relief mingled with urgency. Here was the proof she needed, but also an imperative reminder of Lily's peril. David instructed her on discreetly gaining a copy of the damning footage. Encountering no adopter's caution, Eleanor mentally swam through the process, pressing her investigation as harmonized whispers unfolded understandingly. Back in her apartment later, Eleanor held the evidence securely, resolve solidifying to proceed. Her plan needed careful consideration. She pondered over potential implications and precisely how best to confront the ornate means sundering truth and falsehood. Undoubtedly, promoting diplomacy at the mansion seemed to obscure more than history itself. Driven by the traumatized fear etched into Lily's eyes moments before fleeing those terse walls of power, Eleanor decided she needed to expose the truth in a manner that would prevent any dismissive oversight or concealment the diplomat might attempt. Eleanor considered diverse routes, including the press, but ultimately knew that her voice as a simple woman might be thwarted before just results could bloom beneficially. Instead, the wisest path appeared to travel onward through a formal gala environment, the Hortensian brunch, where strategic presence bore witness and recounted unfolding humiliated tales. With the evidence secured and a sturdy agenda crafted, Eleanor awaited the grand opportunity, a chance to absolve her name and safeguard Lily, confronting power-imbibed contradictions with deliberate composure and the unseen strength of undeniable truth. Gathering her courage, Eleanor knew the upcoming gala was a decisive moment. This time, she wouldn't be an inconspicuous, passive figure slipping in through the side entrances. No, she would be standing at the heart of the spectacle, firmly presenting the truth. She donned a simple, elegant dress that let her confidence shine, a silent assertion against the opulence she would soon face. The Hortensian brunch, a grand affair, overflowed with affluent guests and dignitaries. The mansion shimmered under the bright noon sun, flaunting its elegant architecture while hiding its secrets beneath its luxurious veneer. Guests arrived in droves, greeted with sparkling champagne flutes and a flurry of perfectly synchronized staff catering to every whim. Eleanor stood at the threshold, her fingers clutching her handbag tightly where the crucial evidence lay. Determined strides carried her past the elegant facade, each step a rehearsal of the tightrope walk she was about to undertake between truth and denial. Inside, the crowd buzzed with conversations, layered laughter, and the clinking of glasses creating a symphony of indulgence that throbbed in the refined air. Eleanor's entrance went largely unnoticed amidst the kaleidoscope of vibrant attire, glistening jewels, and gleaming silverware. She navigated the grand hall, her eyes resolute and focused, searching for the right moment to strike, an opportunity that manifested when the diplomat himself took the floor to address the crowd. The diplomat stood poised at the dais, charming and eloquent as he addressed the audience, expertly weaving narratives concerning international relations, peace, and prosperity. His authority filled the room naturally, a practiced ease emanating that held no inkling of the shadows creeping beneath the polished surface. Eleanor knew it was now or never. As a break in the diplomat's address arrived, she swiftly maneuvered to the front. Heart pounding, she summoned every ounce of courage she possessed. Clearing her throat both physically and metaphorically, Eleanor interjected firmly, her voice distinct amidst the attentive quietude. "I have something to say," she declared, her voice steady as she seized the room's attention. The diplomat turned to her, surprise briefly flitting across his features before neutral expressions replaced it. "I'm Eleanor Cole," she continued, "and I have an important truth about recent events." Murmurs permeated the crowd, uncertainty dancing between curiosity and apprehension. The tension was palpable, collective breaths held in expectation. Eleanor pressed on, producing the USB drive and holding it aloft as though it were a talisman of clarity amidst suspicion. "This contains footage that reveals the truth of what happened the night the necklace went missing," Eleanor announced, her words cutting through the grandeur. "It also reveals the well-being of Lily, whose safety is paramount." She placed the USB into the willing hands of the mansion's sound technician, who momentarily hesitated before looking to the crestfallen diplomat for approval. Face pale, the diplomat faltered in maintaining his stoic composure, striking dread briefly unveiling itself in his eyes before audience pressure demanded compliance. Under Eleanor's firm gaze and amidst the solid nods of those gathered, the footage unfolded across wide screens in real time. The guests, once engrossed in festival chatters, now watched the revelations keenly with expressions shifting from disbelief to realization. The video displayed the diplomat's private interactions with Lily, the child's visible distress, and the sequence which led her seeking Eleanor's protection. Veracity seeped into the room with every frame, echoing the silent turbulence eerily hushed until then. A gasp swept through the onlookers as Lily's innocent voice chimed aloud behind the camera, echoed, "She saved me from him." Her small voice shielded by authentic evidence was enough to silence shadows lurking in scrutiny, unveiling not only Eleanor's righteousness but unmasking hidden figures capable of deceit cloaked in prestige. The gallery of elites so realized the fundamental narrative of truth was shifting artfully. Murmurings resonated exchanged like wind-blown whispers amidst vivid torrents of silent reflection. A stunned hush stretched across the room as the video concluded, leaving echoes rippling throughout the gathering. The focus pivoted sharply from Eleanor, vindicating her with visual affirmation, to the diplomat himself, whose carefully curated image now lay in tatters. His attempts at bravado were swallowed by accusations void, the audience's disillusionment cascading unchecked. Sensing the diplomat's enveloping downfall, influential voices rose against his prior accreditations, publicly dismantling the trust once fostered. The once harmonious melody of events descended into discord, further fracturing the diplomat's standing as public indignation grew tenfold in fervor. Eleanor remained at the hub of the uproar, no longer a nondescript figure marginalized and misunderstood, but a forthright herald of justice for an innocent whose voice alone emancipated hidden binding chains. The crowd's vehemence surged, effectively disbanding judgment upon integrity's erosion, soon resonating empathetically in favor of Eleanor with genuine gratitude, offering small consortial excerpts, something very elegant, a testimony of absolution inherent blatantly obvious within truth's liberatory dominion. Thus, through a course inspired by courage beyond consequence and the audience's formidable solidarity towards truth, Eleanor's life navigated once more amidst convergence of illumination and restitution, seeking the return of faith, spurring virtue to summate disparately within sculptured realm amid settings, gaze portals drifting between afflictions, resolution rooted ostensibly in clarity's triumphant crescendo against baleful dictum. The room remained a cacophony of chaos and whispered fervor in the aftermath of Eleanor's revelations. The diplomat, once composed and confident, now stood as a stark exhibit of panic within the confines of his own gathering. His veneer of power and prestige had cracked under the pressure of undeniable evidence, leaving him visibly fragile in its wake. Security personnel, typically stationed at the periphery of such high-profile events, now moved purposefully toward the diplomat, a silent implication of authority about to intervene. A few guests surged forward themselves, agitated and demanding explanations. Faces that once smiled graciously now bore expressions of betrayal, anger simmering below the surface as questions flew with little restraint. "This is absurd," the diplomat finally stammered, his facade of calm crumbling under the weight of collective scrutiny. Yet the murmurs of disbelief continued, now mingling with calls for his immediate dismissal from the event. Within the assembly, a prominent legal consultant, known for navigating ethically murky waters, stepped forward to intercept the diplomat, offering grave words underscored by professional disapproval. "We'd better take this somewhere private," she suggested, not unkindly but pointedly, the implication clear: consequences would follow. Simultaneously, Eleanor felt a whirlwind of emotions swirl within her, ranging from relief and vindication to a residual uncertainty about the diplomat's eventual repercussion. In the flurry of activity, she became acutely aware of the warm touch of a small hand slipping securely into hers. Looking down, she met Lily's wide, thankful eyes, the soul-deep connection grounding them both. Eleanor knelt beside the child, reassurance imbued in her smile. Within that brief exchange, Lily whispered with clarity and quiet resoluteness, "You're my hero." The simple yet profundity of those words adorned Eleanor with an armor woven from recognition and gratitude. Lily's presence by her side was not the only serendipitous engagement. Across the room, the mansion's head of operations approached, offering a gesture of goodwill and apology wrapped in professionalism. "Miss Cole, we owe you an apology, a deep one," he acknowledged, his tone earnest. "Your integrity and courage have laid bare issues we must address." Eleanor accepted the apology with grace, exhaling traces of the tension encapsulating her spirit over the past few days. It was a beginning, a pathway shifting intention toward reparation, though she meant to see it widen to greater wanderings in the pursuit of the righteous cause. Amidst sincere apologies, an unexpected outcome materialized. A well-regarded philanthropist and guest, who had witnessed the affair with studious attention, introduced herself as Sylvia Hayworth. "Your character is inspiring, Eleanor," she observed, extending a proposal that left Eleanor pleasantly startled. "I would love to offer you a scholarship to one of our esteemed caregiving programs, one suited to further hone your skills." Eleanor's eyes widened in disbelief, gratefulness manifesting as an earnest nod fueled by indescribable elation. The proposition represented a pivot, a resurgence of aspirations that had whispered doubt amidst erstwhile clouds yet resounded harmoniously upon the horizon. While tangible recognition unfurled, Eleanor's attention pivoted momentarily to the financier's prior posturing discourse. "Please," the head operative urged gently, "return to caring for Lily if you'd like. We assure you she needs stability, and your bond with her is irreplaceable." Eleanor ran her fingers gently through Lily's hair, contemplating. Then, with quiet determination, she answered freely. "For now, there is so much healing we both need," gesture confirming the little girl's hand nestled in hers, "and that time, it must come first." Grace extended to mercy, Eleanor's resolve transcendent and fortified, setting contours toward progression grounded in strength anew. Away from tumult, Eleanor and Lily discreetly separated from disarray, experiencing a momentous exodus replete with personal reclamation, unified and victorious though echoes of empathetic rambles from collective constituent remained potent fulmination manifesting from precincts favorable impartial shifts. Bodies shifted incrementally as elegance's orchestrated denouement less traditional recasts presaged truth's vigor, defense surpassing metabolism folds repairing estranged questio dissected without brutality notion withholding a variance. As Eleanor and Lily took measured steps toward the entrance pivoting onto cobblestones not bonded through luxuriance or pretense but resolutely met as equals meant stoics bored satisfaction appertaining climbs beckoning serenity dawning slow tempo marshals dynamically unto love's arc ascending beyond tribulation pledge, horizon newfound. Hope clung to Eleanor's heart, a dawning recognition radiant with the fortitude to build anew, reclaiming herself and a young soul in tandem, mighty silhouette casting evolutionaire's respite, wholly sanctified beneath clarity and veracity interwoven. The path stretching before them softly invited their exploration, mutual purpose intrinsic, wherever airways performed nurturing hymns fashionistically alive vis-a-vis illumination discarding tracks oblivious concordance continuum remembered, artistry belaying narrative arcs effulgence feigned sentence thus opt ballanized return penchet restoration.